Hello and welcome everyone to yet another episode in the Treeline tutorial series. In this video, I will try to show you the biggest differences between the jungle and the support meta as the game progresses. To do this, I will make use of the following graph. On the horizontal axis, you will find the game time, whereas on the vertical axis, you will find the power of the team. To show you how this graph should be interpreted, I will use the following example. Let's assume we have a team red and a team blue. The graph shows that early in the game, team red has more overall team power than team blue. This means that on paper, if these teams would decide to engage in a team fight, team red would come out on top. But as you can see in the graph, as the game progresses, team blue starts to get more powerful than team red. This would indicate that from this point on, team blue would win the team fights. Now, let's draw the lines that represent the support and jungle meta compositions. The jungle composition starts at a certain power level. This power level is determined by the respective strength of the jungler, bot laner and top laner at level 1. As the game progresses, all laners complete their final build at roughly the same rate. When all laners completed their builds, the team has reached its full potential power level. We can draw a similar line for the support meta composition. As you might expect, the initial power level of a support meta composition is significantly lower than that of a jungle meta composition due to the low early damage of support. But as you can see in the graph, a support meta composition scales way faster than a jungle meta composition. This means that after a certain point in the game, mostly after the carry hits his 2 or 3 item spike, the support carry composition becomes stronger than the jungle composition. After the carry finished his final item, the support composition scales significantly slower than the jungle composition since one of the players has already reached his full potential. This means that after a certain point, it is possible that the jungle composition becomes stronger than the support composition again. This is usually only the case if the support composition consists of a carry that isn't a hyper carry, so someone like Darius or Jarvan. In general, the support meta composition bot laner reaches his full potential at the same time that the jungle meta composition reaches their full potential. From here on, the support usually hasn't completed all his items, which means that this is the only player in the game that can still scale. This leaves us with this simplified final graph. As you can see, there are 2 points where both lines intersect. Keep in mind that the exact position of these intersection points heavily depends on the champions that both teams picked. Now, let's look at some ways that we can manipulate the shape of this graph. Let's begin with the first part of the graph, the starting point. The height of the starting point is fully determined by the damage potential of your champions. This means that when you are running a jungle composition with a team with champions that have low early game damage, your starting point becomes more close to that of the support meta composition, which means that the intersection point will take place earlier during the game. The earlier this intersection point appears, the earlier the support team outscales your jungle team. The other situation is that your jungle composition consists of champions with really high early game damage. In this case, your starting point lays even higher on the graph and you stay ahead of the support meta team for even longer. Of course, the same applies for a support meta composition. You can also pick hyper carries with high early game damage. But since these champions don't scale as hard and the goal of a support meta team is to outscale your enemy, these picks usually aren't considered very viable. Of course, the same argument can also be made for picking a more aggressive support. After picking your composition, your starting point and the potential steepness of the first part of your scaling graph have already been determined. However, the steepness of the graph can still be influenced by in-game decision making. In the previous tutorial, I gave several ways in which you can prevent the support meta from scaling as hard as they do. By making plays as described in this tutorial, you can significantly decrease the steepness of the line that represents the support meta. As you can see, this will mean that your jungle composition has the upper hand during fights for a longer period of time. And if you apply the described strategy really well, You might even reach a point in which the support meta will never be ahead of your team in terms of overall team power. This, however, will again largely be dependent on the champions that both teams picked. As I also described in the previous video, you don't want to be making any mistakes when running a jungle composition. Because in the graph, this will mean that the intersection point appears even earlier in the game than it already does. If you are running a support meta composition, you want to farm until the first intersection point. After this intersection point, you want to start forcing fights and closing out the game. Because as you can see in the graph, there is always a possibility that eventually late game, the jungle composition will still outscale your composition. Fortunately for the hypercarry team, most games already end before this can happen. And even if this point is reached eventually, the strongest team will still be determined by both teams' compositions. I hope this video has helped you get better insight on the differences between a support meta composition and a jungle meta composition. I hope you now also understand the reason behind why a support meta composition always seems to be the stronger one. I hope that this and the previous tutorials will help you make a great start in the new season. I expect that in a few weeks I will be able to upload replay videos in a regular rate again. So to everyone, best of luck in season 8 and I hope to see you later.